Below is a simple, human, easy-to-understand, rephrased version of your story. I've kept the emotion, flow, and meaning, but removed heavy language and made it sound natural, relatable, and clear. This version is suitable for YouTube narration/storytelling videos. Simple, rephrased story, human tone, 2,000 words. They didn't just think I was failing in life. That night, my family made sure everyone else knew it too. We were sitting at my brother's engagement dinner. A fancy restaurant, a private room, the kind of place my parents loved because it made them feel important. I sat quietly in my chair, my napkin folded on my lap, listening as my father laughed about my wasted years. My brother smiled proudly. My mother nodded along like everything my father said was true. I didn't interrupt. I didn't defend myself. I just stayed quiet. Then my brother's fiancée leaned toward me and whispered something that made the whole room freeze. Before I tell you what happened next, pause for a moment. If your family has ever underestimated you, ignored you, or made you feel small, you'll understand what happened that night. My name is Lauren Hayes. In my family, names only mattered if they came with titles people could brag about. Realtor, investor, business owner, anything that sounded safe, impressive, and respectable. My name didn't come with any of that. So it floated around the table like background noise, only mentioned when someone needed an example of what not to be. The dinner was held downtown in a quiet, expensive restaurant. Dark wooden walls, soft lighting, white tablecloths, heavy silverware, servers who refilled glasses before you even asked. My parents loved places like this. They believed where you sat mattered more than who you really were. I sat 2 chairs away from my brother, close enough to hear everything, but far enough to be ignored. He looked confident, relaxed, already acting like the future head of the family. People leaned toward him when they spoke. They laughed louder at his jokes. My parents watched him with pride and relief, the same look they'd had my whole life when talking about him. No one asked me how I was, and when someone tried, my mother answered for me. "Lauren is still figuring things out," she said gently, like she was fixing a small problem. My father added that not everyone was built to handle real pressure. They smiled like they were being kind. I stared at the table instead, the candlelight, the smell of food, the quiet noise of conversations outside the room. I focused on those details because I had learned something important over the years. If I stayed quiet enough, people talked like I wasn't there. My brother's fiancée sat across from me. She wasn't loud. She didn't try to impress anyone. She watched. She listened. When my parents spoke, she paid attention. When my brother talked about work, she asked questions that made him slow down and explain himself. She noticed things. At one point, my father joked about how different my life had been. People laughed politely. My chest tightened. I didn't correct him. I didn't argue. Silence had become my habit, not because I was weak, but because I was tired of explaining my life to people who had already decided what they thought of me. What no one at that table knew was that this dinner mattered more than they realized. It wasn't just another family event for me. It was proof of how long I could sit in a room designed to ignore me. My name always came last when success was discussed, never celebrated, just mentioned briefly, like a footnote. As my brother talked about his future, my parents leaned in. My father added extra details to make everything sound bigger and better. My mother smiled like she was showing the world a perfect family. Their voices pulled me into memories. A few months earlier, I saw photos online of a party at my parents' house, a networking event. People in expensive clothes standing by the pool. I hadn't been invited. When I asked my mother later, she said she didn't think I'd be comfortable, like excluding me was a favor. Then there was a holiday barbecue. My father bragged loudly about my brother's success. Then he mentioned me with a laugh, like I was a joke. People smiled awkwardly. Someone patted my arm like I had lost something important. Back at the dinner, my brother raised his glass and said, "Not everyone chooses a traditional path." His eyes flicked toward me. A reminder. I felt the urge to speak, to defend myself. But I didn't. I had learned that reacting only gave them control. Silence was the only thing that still belonged to me. The worst part wasn't the jokes. It was the concern. Before the dinner, my brother called and asked if I needed help buying something nice to wear. He said he didn't want me to feel embarrassed. At the table, my mother spoke about my future like it was a problem waiting to be solved. She talked about stability, about how someone might take care of me someday. Her hand rested on my shoulder. That was when something changed. I focused on my breathing. All the nights I worked alone, all the calls I couldn't talk about, all the decisions I made without approval. They thought my quiet meant confusion. They thought my patience meant dependence. Across the table, my brother's fiancée was watching closely, really watching. For the first time that night, I felt like the story they told about me was about to break. I stayed calm. I stayed still. Inside, I felt steady. The truth was, my life wasn't uncertain at all. It just didn't look like theirs. While my parents talked loudly about success, my life ran quietly. Early mornings, late nights, a small apartment, a laptop humming, calls from different time zones, progress measured in contracts, approvals, and short messages saying, "We're moving forward." No applause, no audience, just momentum. I didn't talk about my work because I couldn't. Things were fragile. One loose word could ruin everything. So I let them underestimate me. It was safer. That night, I realized how badly they misunderstood silence. My brother leaned back, satisfied. My parents planned future events. They were comfortable. But I felt the shift before anyone spoke. My brother's fiancée stopped listening to their stories. She watched me instead. My pauses, my restraint, my calm. Then my father suddenly waved his hand toward me. And Lauren, he said, has always been independent. The word hung in the air. My mother laughed softly. She likes doing things her own way. We just want her to be secure. Across from me, the fiancée tilted her head. "Lauren," she asked calmly, "what exactly do you do?" The question felt different. Before I could answer, my brother laughed. "It's complicated. Some tech thing." The fiancée ignored him. "What kind of platform?" she asked. The room went quiet. "Logistics?" she asked gently. "Yes," I said. "Global?" "Yes." Her eyes widened slightly. "Supply chain optimization?" "Yes." Then she stopped mid-sentence. The silence was immediate. "Lauren Hayes," she said carefully. "You're the founder, aren't you?" I nodded. She pulled out her phone and showed an article. No photos, just numbers. Investors praising a quiet founder. "This is one of the most watched platforms in the industry," she said. "We've been trying to meet you for months." My mother's hand fell away from my shoulder. "Why didn't you tell us?" My father asked. "Stop, you never asked," I said. My brother stood up, angry. "That's impossible." "The whole point," the fiancé said calmly, "was that you didn't know." I stood, placed my napkin down, and said goodbye. As I walked out, the silence followed me. Not the silence of being ignored, the silence of truth. And for the first time in my life, it felt fair. If you want, short version for YouTube Shorts, full video script, AI image prompts, viral hook opening, USA targeted SEO, title, description. Just tell me.